Chapter 1. Sweet Days of the Past. New York, summer 19-2000. The city was bursting with life. The streets were filled with the sounds of luxury cars, the hum of busy crowds, and the endless parties that took place in grand mansions. The world was changing, and the new modern age was emerging with excitement and glamour. Yet, amidst all this noise and thrill, there was one thing that I couldn't forget in the hot summer nights of New York. Jack. I, Annabelle, lived at the time in a quiet neighborhood near East Harlem. My world was completely different from the city's dazzling life. Our house wasn't big or luxurious, but in our small cottage, we found ourselves living a simple life full of grand dreams. My mother always told me, "My dear, the world will change and you must reach for whatever you desire." But I never knew where my path would lead. Everything changed the day I met Jack. At that time, he was a young man from a poor family, with sharp eyes and a simple face, but full of ambition to achieve something greater. Jack, who came from a poor family in New York, often spoke about the struggles he faced and how he wanted to make a name for himself in this emerging world. He wanted to build a life where he would no longer be limited by his humble beginnings. We spent many hot summer days by a secluded lake, listening to his dreams. Jack always talked about his big plans. He would tell me, "Annabelle, one day I will reach great wealth and you will be right by my side. One day I'll have a grand house in Long Island and you'll see me everywhere." At times, I didn't believe this simple young man could achieve such things, but there was something in his eyes that made me believe in his words. Then, everything changed with the outbreak of World War I. Jack went to the front. The memory of that day is still fresh in my mind. When he came to say goodbye, it felt like time stopped in my world. I squeezed his hands and said, "Come back, Jack. You promised me you would return." But with that special smile of his, he said, "I'll be waiting for you, Annabelle. One day I will come back, and we will be together." After Jack left for the war, something in my life shattered. The days of walking the busy streets of New York, dreaming of Jack, seemed to freeze. Since he went to the front, my eyes would often wander to the lake where we once sat together. Nothing could bring back the feeling of freedom and excitement I shared with him. Chapter 2. Return to a New World. After Jack went to the front lines, something inside me broke. For someone like me, who walked the crowded streets of New York every day and thought of Jack's dream, the war seemed to stop everything. Since Jack had gone to the front, my eyes always found themselves looking at the lake where I once sat beside him. Nothing could bring back the sense of freedom and excitement I had experienced with him. But after a while, something changed within me. Just when Jack was on the battlefield, I felt like time was passing quickly. My world remained still, and in the noisy world of New York, I searched for a way to cope with my longing. It was then that Thomas entered my life. Thomas was a man from the middle class of New York. He wasn't like the other rich and influential men of that time, but he had qualities that drew me to him. Not only did he have physical charm, but he also spoke with confidence and calmness. When I first met him at a family gathering, I felt like everything around me stopped. For the first time, he seemed like a light in the darkness I was experiencing at that time. Our acquaintance happened at that simple gathering. I was standing by the window, gazing at the streets that were shining brightly that night. Thomas came up to me and casually asked, "Are you okay?" His voice was calm and soothing. From the first glance, there was something in his eyes that seemed like it could calm my soul. We started talking. He mentioned that he had just returned from Europe and was planning to build a new life in New York. I'll never forget how I thought to myself, what is this man looking for? I felt that he could never draw me in the way Jack did, but at that moment, there was something more in Thomas that was pulling me towards him. He explained his reasons for returning to New York. I never wanted to live in a place without peace. This sentence resonated with me. In a way, there was something in his words that distracted me from my longing for Jack. My father, who had always emphasized that I should make wise choices in my life, quickly gave his opinion about Thomas. He said that Thomas was a respectable and dignified man, and that life with him could offer me a future full of peace and success. At that time, something in my heart told me that maybe this was exactly what I needed. Thomas asked me to spend more time with him, and this gave me the opportunity to feel like I was settling into my new world. Just when Jack was at the front line, I was building a different future with Thomas. I often asked myself if this life was real. Was this the life I had once imagined with Jack? Chapter 3. In the Heart of Two Worlds. When Jack returned, something in his face had changed. He was no longer the energetic, hopeful young man who had gone to war. He was now a man trying to survive in the harsh world of New York. The moment I saw him again, my heart skipped, remembering those sweet, innocent days. But something in me said that I couldn't go back to him. Reality had changed. Jack was still the same simple man who once spoke to me by the lake, but now he was desperately trying to rebuild himself. He once spoke about a future full of wealth and new opportunities, but now he was struggling. Jack said to me, "Annabelle, I'm still the same man I promised you. You will be with me and I'll make everything right again." But there was nothing in his eyes to convince me. Life had changed, and I now had someone else in my life. Thomas, the man who had been with me during these 4 years, had become everything I needed. Security. He had managed to build a great fortune. He had a big house and a nice neighborhood in New York, drove luxury cars, and everything I once dreamed of was now within my grasp. The security, the wealth, and the comfort that I had with Thomas gave me peace of mind. It was something I never had with Jack, but Jack would say to me, "Annabelle, you shouldn't be with Thomas just for the money and security. I came back from the war not to lose you, but to build the future I promised." And these words conflicted with everything I felt. He was still pulling me towards him, but I knew that with Thomas, I was safe and at peace. During the days when I sat with Thomas and looked at him, my heart found tranquility. He knew how to build a life for us. In his big house, I felt like I was in my new world. Nothing could take away the security I had with him. He had told me that I would never have to worry again, that nothing would be missing in my life. Yet Jack's memories came to me every night. He always spoke about returning to the world he once dreamed of, the world where we were together. But the truth was, Jack was no longer that man. War had changed him. He thought about returning to the past, while I was living in the new world Thomas had created for me. My life had divided into 2 parts. Jack's world, full of passion and unfulfilled dreams, lay on one side. On the other side was Thomas's world, a world of wealth, security, and comfort that made me feel like I needed nothing else. Thomas gave me the feeling of safety that I had never experienced with Jack. But when Jack told me, "Annabelle, I need you. You have to leave Thomas. I can't live without you," my heart wavered again. Sometimes I wondered if he was right. Maybe Jack's words were true, and I should return to the love I once had. But was this the right choice? Should I risk my future for the emotions of the past? Nights spent with Thomas made me question whether I was betraying him by choosing something else in my heart. He was kind to me, and he never let me feel that anything was missing. He was so sincere in his love for me that I couldn't ignore him. But Jack was still in my heart. One night when Thomas was out of the house, Jack came to see me. When I saw him in the doorway, something inside me broke again. He said, "Annabelle, you only have one choice. You must leave this new world of yours and join me. Let's start again." This moment was the hardest of my life. Should I return to Jack and face the poverty and struggles of the past? Or should I stay with Thomas and continue living in this world of wealth and security? This choice wasn't just mine. It was one I had to make with my heart, not just with my mind. Chapter 5. The End or a Beginning? As Jack stood at the doorway, his eyes filled with longing and hope, my world turned into a puzzle. I could hear my heart beating faster than ever, each beat feeling like it came from the depths of a distant past. Jack's eyes, the same eyes I had once dreamed of spending my life with, were in front of me again. But my world had changed. Thomas, the man who held my whole world in his hands, was not by my side. He was still on his way home. And I, in this moment of crisis, was faced with a single choice. Should I go back to the past and revive my old love? Should I stay with Jack and promise him I would never leave, even if it meant fighting through a more complicated and unforgiving world? Or should I continue in this new world Thomas had created for me, a world of security and comfort? But was this truly the life I wanted? My eyes shifted between the two men. Jack, still in my mind as the brave, passionate young man, and Thomas, who now controlled my world. I felt like I could let go of the past and live with Thomas, with all the security and wealth, but my heart still longed for the passion I once shared with Jack. A big question swirled in my mind. Is the old love, with all its ups and downs, worth giving up the security and peace I found with Thomas? Can love truly solve all the problems of life? Or in the end, is security and comfort all that matters? The silence hung in the air. Jack was waiting for my answer, and I was stuck in my new world with Thomas, in a world that perhaps was meant for me from the start. The question remains, if you were in Annabelle's shoes, what would you do? Would you choose old passion and love, or security and wealth with Thomas?